Hi, I'm Paul Santinello. Welcome to this edition of The Upside. Normally we talk about all the good things that are going on in Long Meadow. Today is one of our special editions, as I like to call them. I'm honored to have international political consultant Tony Signoli and the assistant managing editor of Mass Live, Rob Rizzuto. Did I get that right this time?
Republican and Mass Live.
Mass Republican. Well, no one reads
You were
Republican.
close.
Mass Live. So you're the king, man. You're the king. That's all we know. But guys, thanks for coming. This is our post-election wrap-up. And with all the things that have happened, it's probably good that we were a week delayed in getting here, because a lot has gone on from just the election day to today that is newsworthy, so to speak. So my first question is to you, Rob. You're the media guy. Why did everybody get it wrong?
Why did everybody get it wrong? Well,
That's the question, right?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's one I'm still looking to answer.
Yeah.
You had. I think we talked early in the day on election day, and it was interesting. You had a lot of the exit polling, the earlier stuff showed that Hillary was leading in the crucial places. And I think what we saw is that there was a ton of folks that were not reflected in the polling that post-work, 5 p.m., said, you know what, I'm going to cast my ballot, and I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it all, and it's time for something different. And they voted for Donald Trump. And it wasn't a well thought out, I'm doing this because I like these views or these ideas. I think a lot of it was people were tired of politics as usual. And what Donald Trump represented was the opposite of politics as usual. It wasn't so much candidate versus candidate as she's more the same, he's something different, I'm going to roll the dice. And I think that factor there is what you couldn't categorize, predict, or easily plot for ahead of time. And for my opinion, that's why I think everybody got it wrong.
But are the exit polls that reliable that in the past they haven't been wrong like that?
Tony, probably
I'll
better
tell
one
you,
to answer
they've
than
usually
me.
been more on target.
Yep.
But what you couldn't poll, what you couldn't get the feel for is exactly what Rob just said. Best way I can explain it is an analogy. 4 o'clock in the afternoon Eastern Standard Time, I get the tracking numbers for all the swing states. And I think I may have shared them with you, Rob. I think I may have sent them over. Because I wanted to send them to a few people outside of our circle, just to make sure I wasn't imagining all this, right? And at that point, it's saying in Wisconsin and Michigan and other places, she's up by a point, she's up by 3, she's up by 5. Common sense and all the polls and just experience would say, with all the early voting, with all the money she spent on voter ID and get out the vote and data mining and all the rest, she's driven her vote there. That if she can just hold those next 4 to 5 hours, depending on where the votes are being cast, based on time zones and whatnot, she's going to be okay. So what happened? I love what you just said. I picked right up from that. What happened was a lot of folks, mad as heck, despite everything that CNN and MSNBC and ABC told them and everybody else, that all the pundits told them, that all the pollsters said, they still went to vote between 4 and 5 o'clock in the afternoon after work, thinking they were throwing their vote away for Donald Trump. That's what's amazing to me. We've not seen something like that in forever. They're going out thinking, everybody says, all the experts, no way, no how, Donald Trump, but I'm still going to vote for him anyway. And take a look at the margins of victory for him in Wisconsin, in Michigan, and other places. It's because of those folks who said, you know what, I'm going to go do it. I might be throwing it away, but I'm that angry that I'm going to do this. Wow.
Now, you guys, I'm sure you've seen the video from Michael Moore that he did talking about why Trump was going to win, and he knows his people. And I know people on the right think Michael Moore is a nut, for maybe some justifiably so reasons, but why didn't the left listen to him? Because he's not someone he's not a Trump supporter, and he even says that, but that he knew his people, and what Trump was saying was resonating. And I've said this before, is that 2/3 of the people that were going to these Trump rallies weren't Republicans.
Yeah.
Now, I know it's anecdotal. I do not, I know that you can't tabulate that exactly or whatever, but most of the people at his rallies were not Republicans. And I don't know if the media chose to ignore it, and maybe that reporting left everybody feeling in the Clinton campaign pretty comfortable. But you can't ignore that when 2/3 of the people are not Republican, that there's something else going on. I mean, was Michael Moore resonating with anybody in the Democrat Party at all?
Well, I guess is the question, why were the Democrats not more in tune with that? Here we are post-election, why are they not in tune with a lot more? it seems like a lot of folks in their party are unhappy with the status quo, and there's been a very hard fight to keep things the status quo within the party, and that doesn't bode well for one's future. I mean, interestingly enough, we were just having this conversation a couple years ago, post 2012, with the Republican unrest regarding how things went with that election. But now here the Democrats are facing sweeping losses, and there's a lot of people that identify as Democrats that say, you're not representing me, and they're not making any changes. So is the ignoring of the warnings the same thing as saying, you know, well, people were really upset about the whole Desi Wasserman Schultz, you know, the so-called rigging of the primary, and, you know, Hillary Clinton turns right around post-fallout and says, well, I'll make her an honorary campaign chair, which means nothing, but it says something negative to all those people who are already unhappy. Tone deaf.
Well said.
And is this just a reflection of that? I'd be willing to say so.
Yeah, tone deaf is a great line in this. Michigan, Bernie Sanders skunks Hillary Clinton in Michigan. That should have been the first warning bell. And not just because Michael Moore is from Michigan. There's a lot of common sense in what he had to say. And no one paid attention to it, and he called it right. And we talked about who called it right, who didn't. Well, probably Joe Scarborough on Morning Joe, who took a lot of hits for it over 6 or 7 months, where he was just saying, something's happening, folks. I know my state, I know Florida, I know my friends in Ohio and Wisconsin. Something's happening. David Gergen kind of touched on it a few times, and Michael Moore nailed it. If you lived in Flint, Michigan, what government was it that failed you? Was it Ronald Reagan's? Was it JFK's? Whose was it? It was on the last 8 years of watch. Where was the Fed to help out? Yeah, the governor's to blame. Yes, the water crews to blame, all the local officials. But where was Washington to help me? So if you live in Flint, take a look at the votes that came out of Detroit. Take a look at the 29% of Hispanic Latino voters in America who voted for Donald Trump. We were all told that wasn't a possibility. And I remember being here with you guys early on, and I had said something to the effect of, because I think you asked about Hispanic Latino vote, or somehow that came up in our conversation. And I said something to the effect of, she needs 100% of all that vote. She needs every single one of those votes, or she won't be able to win. She lost almost 30%. She lost 30% of the Hispanic Latino vote. That's amazing. And look at the votes of Michigan. It wasn't just the suburbs. Take a look at Detroit. Take a look at the numbers in Flint, where people felt left down. And Flint is largely African American, and a lot of those folks felt the same way as the people in Pennsylvania or in Ohio or in other areas. Take a look at Indiana. Certainly with Mike Pence on the ticket, that was going to help, but take a look at what was coming out of Indiana, which Trump has, to his credit, in the last 24 hours as we sit here, kind of addressed. 1,000 jobs are going away from Carrier in Indiana. Donald Trump picks up the phone, makes a phone call, the 1,000 jobs are now staying. That's what people were looking for. And it's not the norm of government. It's not the way it's done normally. But that's what people don't want anymore. They don't want the way it's done. They want something new. Maybe they're going to get it. Wow.
So my next question is, has Donald Trump changed campaigning forever? And by that I mean, we were told over and over again, he doesn't have a ground game, doesn't have a ground game, doesn't have a ground game. He proved you don't, and I mentioned this in another show, that the ground game wasn't traditional. There was something called Trump talk that I could pick up my cell phone and call around the country, right? And that was a lot of what they were doing in states like Massachusetts, because there was no ground game, because he wasn't going to win it. But has he changed it through social media? That Hillary Clinton, we said $1 billion. It's probably over $1 billion was spent on behalf of her campaign. More than $1 billion, right?
Yeah, more.
And all the traditional avenues of commercials and the ground forces and offices. And I know Trump is a different character, and most of the other Republicans probably couldn't have gotten the coverage he got. But has he changed it, or at least the outlook? I mean, does it look a little differently going forward? Or do you have to be a Donald Trump to have it like that?
Well, that's a good. I mean, as far as like the media side is concerned, he was definitely always colorful and interesting, and especially at the beginning, I think that's what. He's not saying the same standard, boring, safe answer to things, and that's going to draw attention. So would what he did work for other people? I don't know. Does it come down to the individual, or is it a total game change? What do you think?
I think it's a little bit of both. Only Donald Trump could have pulled this piece off. There's only a Donald Trump that could have done this. You know, somebody who had 11 years as a reality star with The Apprentice, but who had 35, 37 years in the public eye. From the books to perception to reality to whatever. I mean, this guy was on the cover of Playboy magazine 25 years ago this year, talking about the nation, the state of the nation, and being asked 25 years ago, would you consider running for president of the United States? Look at his answer. Only if, you know, the nation were in the need. Only if I could do it in a different kind of a way than it's done before. Because a traditional campaign, no. I wouldn't go through all that BS. Wow, 25 years ago, he telegraphed that in. Can somebody else do this? Not just anybody, not the standard player. I don't think this opens the door for Trump-like candidates. This guy's unique to be able to pull this off. But does it change campaigning forever? It sure does. And we're not even sure how that all works out just yet. Given the amount of money on all the correct, right, scientific things that Hillary Clinton did, despite what was tone deaf, she had the troops on the ground. She had the right people that could bring out the votes. She outspent him on TV, on radio, on newsprint, on mailings. And when you take a look at the outside groups, the PACs, she even ruled there from what we can see. I don't know what the final numbers are going to be, guys, but I think you're talking close when you add it all up to $1.5 billion. I wouldn't be shocked by $2 billion when you take into account everything that was spent by unions, by others. Now, let me just digress for a second. One that struck me 5 or 6 weeks before the election was asked by the head of a union in another state to talk to his rank and file, basically to the effect of, what do you got to do on election day? You know, are you registered to vote, and where are you going to vote, and check, you know, all the basics, with no bias, whether the presidency or Congress or anything like that. So no bias for me, just the facts. Here's what you got to do. Here's how you do it. And of course, that union had publicly endorsed Hillary Clinton. So for the total heck of it, I said, let's do a straw poll, private, no show of hands. Everybody's got a piece of paper. Write down who you're voting for president. No way I can tell who you are and whatever. I'd love to see this. I just want to take them with me. So I did. 1,300 members of that union, rounded off. 1,300. 871 voted for Donald Trump. That union endorsed Hillary Clinton and sent a huge PAC check to her as well. Maybe that's another example of what was going on here. Tone deaf, I keep coming back to that tone deaf aspect of the Clinton campaign. I think the game has changed in a lot of ways, Paul.
One of the questions I have is about polls, because you talked about that, right? In every poll, you know, you have Hillary Clinton up by 11 points, down by 5, and you know, in a week and a half or something.
Yeah.
And I don't know if polls can shift that fast, realistically. But then there was the Los Angeles Times poll, and USC, LA Times USC, which was a tracking 3,000 people, that was calling it for Trump. For a long period of time, and you know, like up by 1 or something.
Yeah.
And then most of the polls were national. We knew the national number didn't matter, right? The popular vote didn't matter. But was the polling accurate? Was the polling asking the right questions in this election? You guys saw more of the polls than I would have. But what, you know, was that fair and accurate? And I don't mean that anybody. I'm not trying to disparage a poll.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
you go from Hillary Clinton up 11 to Donald Trump up 2. I mean, I find that hard to believe that. Whether it's, you know, her up 11 or him, that 13 points could happen or fall in a week. I mean, I've never seen that before. I mean, unless it was, you know, John Edwards or, you know, one of those.
Something crazy happens, I mean, as far as, you know, the polling and where it went wrong, here's what I remember. The last, like, week of the campaign, I remember the James Comey thing. The FBI director says, you know, investigation on again, and it's Anthony Weiner and the cell phone and this whole thing. And I think I remember a lot of people were just like, it's just more. It doesn't even matter what the truth is. I don't want to hear any more. It's enough crap, and it's just more. It's more the same. It's more trouble. Done. And we were watching the Nate Silver, the numbers.
Yeah.
And so one of my colleagues that I work with, another editor, is like, they just dropped another 5 points and sent me text messages. And it's literally happening like day to day, 3 times a day. And it's like, you know, going from like 80 something down. And it was almost like a finger on the pulse of America. So as far as the polling, did it really tap into the unrest and the dissatisfaction with the status quo? Probably not. And was it ever designed to? Probably not. Probably was looking at things in a kind of traditional, you know, horse race, you know what I mean? Like, dislike, but not, you know, how happy are you with where you and your family is compared to a decade ago? Has it progressed as much as you'd like? And people are going to say hell no.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
was the question asked? Probably not. I personally think it's that unrest, that dissatisfaction with this is how things are. I'm tired of it. It's not helping me and my family. Give this guy a shot.
Yeah. I go back to, and I don't think anybody really paid attention, but James Carville, right? It's the economy, stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it always is, right? It's your pocketbook, it's your family,
Yeah.
are your kids when you're looking at $50,000 colleges and you can't get a job.
Yeah.
And I understand that, the government can fluff unemployment numbers and stuff. That's my business. But there is a higher number of people out of the workforce than there were a decade ago. There are a higher number of people on food stamps than there were a decade ago. So you can fluff it and say we're at full employment when they have 3 part-time jobs. But it goes back, and I don't understand why that same message wasn't coming across through the Clinton campaign. And that's what Donald Trump, to me, that's what Trump's message was. Give me the shot. Even to the African American community, right? What do you got what do you got to lose by giving me a shot?
Yep. I'm
going to come back and create jobs for you. And when people are hurting, and like you guys, know this. I mean, there's certain areas of the markets that expand and will always do well. We're in Massachusetts, so biotech and healthcare are going to always flourish in this area for some part. But when you get out in Wisconsin's of the world, where your manufacturing jobs are going, those people are hurting. And that's why it was always, James Carville was always, no matter what the economy, what's going on in the world, it's always what the economy is doing in this country,
Yeah.
good or bad. And that's what helped Bill Clinton in the second term. The economy was doing well.
And people want hope, even if it's a hope that in some instances doesn't make a lot of sense in its face value. 75,000 or thereabouts coal workers in America. I don't think a lot of them are going to be in safe jobs in 5 or 10 years, or that jobs are going to be returning there. There's 500,000 clean energy workers in America. So Donald Trump talking about bringing jobs back for coal. I think a lot of those folks, when you ask them, in those next to the woods, Kentucky, Tennessee, they know that's not going to happen. But what they've got is some hope that maybe he's going to bring them a different kind of a job. And I am fascinated by what's happened since he's become president. 2 key phone calls of all the rest. On top of the premier of Japan coming to see him at Trump Tower. I mean, this is out of a cartoon. This is out of a superhero book. This is he's like Daddy Warbucks from Little Orphan Annie. The premier of Japan's here. He's zipping into Trump Tower.
Yeah.
Helicopters are landing on the roof. It's astonishing. But I go to these 2 phone calls, one to the chairman of Ford Motor Company and to the CEO of Ford Motor Company. There was a rumor that apparently the Lincoln plant was going to move to Mexican, unfounded. But yet Trump got on the phone with this guy as president-elect and basically then tweets immediately, don't worry, the plant's not leaving.
All set.
Exactly. It's all set.
I listened to you.
Yeah.
I did what I could do. I took care of it.
Yeah.
It's okay. That direct.
Yeah. And he's talking directly to his followers. I heard it. I got on it. I made the call. It's not happening. Now, Ford came out right away and said, no, but we weren't moving anyway.
Yeah.
Well, who are you going to believe? The Ford Motor Company's corporate conglomerate or Donald Trump?
Exactly.
But now the carrier piece, the news coming out of Indiana in less than 24 hours. Yeah, we were moving 1,000 jobs. Yeah, he called and we're keeping the 1,000 jobs here now. If you're in Indiana, you're doing cartwheels right now.
Yeah.
And it's not just the 1,000 jobs. What people tend to forget is where that factory's located. It's the guy that has the breakfast shop, right?
Paul,
the store. So it's 1,000 jobs times 10, 20, 30.
Yeah, all that
we're going to be done,
auxiliary
right?
supported.
That's being in
It's a
touch with
community.
what's really happening. That's
Yeah.
being not tone deaf. You're exactly right. There's all that comes along. The economic impact of all the rest. Yeah.
So this is what's fascinating to me, okay? The Democrats have a lot of smart people in their party. They really do. And the election's over, the protests come out, and we know that they're not organic. We know that, right? We know that they're being funded, whatever. But then you come out and there's a challenge to electoral college, right? Even our local state senator says he's going to file a bill, and I registered my displeasure with one of his aides to change the vote in America. What irritates me about that is that if anybody had said that 2 weeks before the election, okay, you have some ground to stand on. But they doubled down on this, right? So Hillary Clinton came out and did a fantastic speech. We got to support Donald Trump. Even President Obama said we got to support. Now, I understand they probably don't really want that, but they did the right thing. They did the honorable thing, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
And now, but then the other people come out and say we're going to challenge electoral college. It shouldn't be right. that first of all, it torques me off. But realistically, they're just, again, they keep poking into the chest of the. You're the guy in Indiana says you can take the Electoral College and shove it because I got my job back now. You know, they don't care about the 2 million popular vote because he played by the rules and he won. I don't get it. Why are they doing this? Why are they doubling down on this and saying we're going to change electoral to delegitimize a president-elect? I understand maybe some of the radicals in the party could do that. The Bernie Sanders supporters, but I won't even slight them. But these are mainstream Democrats that are saying we need to change the system now. How's that perception? And you guys have you have more touch of it than in terms of being in the news and the media than I would. But
I mean, challenging the Electoral College aspect is one part of it. But for me, what was the more shocking thing was, okay, Jill Stein is challenged. She was calling for recounts. Okay, you expect that from Jill Stein. You know what I mean? Very nice lady, but she does her own thing. She's got her own thing going on.
She does.
So she's calling for these recounts, and then out of nowhere, the Clinton camp says, well, our supporters would like us to do this, so we're doing it. First off, I thought it was terribly hypocritical with the whole, remember when Donald Trump has said in that third debate, I may not accept the results of this election. And it scared the hell out of everybody, pardon if I can say that. And that was the most shocking and scary thing to America. And now it's okay for Hillary Clinton, in essence, to say that weeks later, when there's been no reports or evidence of voter fraud or any type of issues. It was just narrow. It was close enough. I thought that was, if we get right back to the tone deaf thing, to say now I'm listening to my supporters. But it was terrifying when Donald Trump said that he was going to delegitimize the integrity of our election system, and then it's okay now because it's Hillary Clinton. Just from a media, middle of the road, unbiased perspective, that doesn't float with me. I think that's a problem, and I think that's something that could be a problem for people like I know from Western New York that voted for Barack Obama, that were not big fans of the George Bush presidency, and that overwhelmingly voted for Donald Trump this time. They see something like that, and it's just like hearing the James Comey thing. I don't even need to hear any more. I stopped paying attention. It's just more of that crap. And it's upsetting, and it turns people off.
Clinton fatigue, Washington fatigue with the same old. And this response right now is not one that gets that voter that's out there, like you just talked about, the person who voted for Barack Obama before but voted for Trump this time around, or those Bernie supporters who are out there who saw a system that was rigged. 30 and under, they're looking at this right now saying, really? I'm not signing that petition. I'm not sending you $5. Members of Congress, state party officials, state officials in different states putting out, the classic emails of, hey, we're going to fight this, but send me $100. Same old. Tone deaf, completely tone deaf. That doesn't work. Tell me what you're going to do for me, for my family. Because what I'm worried about is how am I paying that orthodontist bill? How am I going to handle that college bill? How? All that. Give me something different. And the response that we've seen so far from a lot of standard bearers in the Democratic Party has been the same response that it's always been. It's tone deaf. That's the problem with and for Nancy Pelosi. Whether she remains Speaker of the House or not, you're California. You look like California. You're 78 years old. You don't look like anyone else I know in Oklahoma, in Ohio, or in Wisconsin and whatnot. And you're tone deaf. And you're really, really rich. And what's okay? Donald Trump is really, really rich too. And I had the opportunity to ask him in an interview once that we had done on Boston radio. How the heck can you find anything in common with the people in New Hampshire? All these people say, what is this all about? How is this happening? And he gave this incredible answer. It doesn't matter how much money I have or how much money they have. I know what they're able to do with what they have. I understand that. And it's not good enough. It's not good enough for them. It's not good enough for me. I remember the phone bank just lighting up and whatnot. There's that. There's being in common touch with the average regular person. I know a lot of this is blue smoke and mirrors. I get it. But politics, as we often say, is perception, not reality. Yeah. But he pulls off a few more phone calls like that with Carrier, and he's going to start validating, that base that was there that voted for him, who may have voted for Barack Obama in the past.
So as a Republican, I think it's wonderful every time Democrats do that. We're going to change the Electoral College now. And quite frankly, I think what they should be worried about is elections in 2 years. the midterm elections, because
right.
they keep going down this road. I mean, the fact that you can say what you want about Representative Ellison, that you want to make him the head of the DNC. If you go back and look at some of the positions this guy's taken, you're talking to the left of left on a lot of things. And if that's the road, again, tone deaf, I think it's wonderful from my perspective. So, as someone
It's
in the opposite
1972 again in the Democratic Party. Yeah.
I don't get it. And again, I think those average people that go to work every day for a living, go to work every day, are looking at this, and like you say, that's enough, man. The guy won. You want to change the outcome now that he won. Not before he won, but after he won. So. And you talked about hope and change. You say, I kept telling people, one of the things that you're not listening to Donald Trump is he's hope and change. The difference is he wasn't as eloquent as Barack Obama. And his message was really Barack Obama's message, which is you can do better.
Yeah.
And again, he not as polished as Speaker. Barack Obama is a great orator and on par with no one. But his message was exactly what Barack Obama gave, and I don't think Hillary Clinton had that same message, even though it was stronger together or something like that. Does that make sense to you?
I think so. I think you're dead on. And I was speaking with some friends. I'm in my mid-30s. So this Facebook year with the election, there wasn't a lot of people in my circle of friends that were super passionate on either side, but there was definitely more people posting things like, hey, hear what this guy is saying. It was more pro-Trump. Nothing, wild and over the top, but there was one particular friend, like I said, voted for Barack Obama in this and that, but he was really, what Trump was saying was resonating with him. I got to speak with him this past weekend. I'm like, so tell me, what was it? Help me understand, And he says, I got 2 kids. He goes, the cost of our health care is out of control. He goes, I'm scared to death that something's going to happen to one of them, not just as a parent, because it will ruin us financially. He's like, I don't see things getting any better with the way we're going. He's like, it is what it is. It's the status quo. He goes, it's not changing. He said, to me, Donald Trump represented a chance, an opportunity. He said, is it uncertain? Is it unknown? Is it throwing a monkey wrench into the whole ringer? He said, absolutely. He said, but from my perspective, I feel like that uncertainty gives me more hope and a better chance than just staying the course. And I totally understand.
Rolling the dice. I'm going to roll the dice rather than going with the bet that I know is going to give me not everything I need or want. There was that piece. Again, that perception. I was stunned by one thing that I saw in some of the crosstabs of polling. And I'm not going to even be able to say this in a scientific way from the poll, but there was a large group of people who felt exactly the way that you just described. And then one other piece. I know what the next 4 years looks like with Hillary Clinton. And I know what's going to happen to me on my health care, on other issues. But you know what? I don't have a clue what he's going to do. And I've never seen anything like this before. And he might be off the wall. But you know what? I think I'm going to roll the dice with him. It's a great movie with Whoopi Goldberg called The Associate. Donald Trump plays a cameo role in this. And it's got to be killing Whoopi right now. Because he comes in, and there's a standard player in finance and whatnot. He's just changed over to her, to Whoopi Goldberg, meaning Donald Trump. And this guy says, hey, wait a minute, stay with me, stay with me, stay with me. Stay the course with me. You're going to crash and burn if you go with her. And Donald Trump says, you know what? I think I'll go crash and burn with her for the hell of it. That's this election. I'm surprised you haven't seen that on YouTube and whatnot. Yeah. But there's a lot of people saying, I'm going to take that chance. Yeah. I'm going to take that role. Absolutely.
So we have a few minutes, and now we've also, like I said, this might be more opportune than a couple of weeks ago because you've seen some of these appointments. Any surprises? I mean, the guy who's the crazy guy seems to be making some pretty sane choices for his cabinet positions.
Choices from the establishment in some instances. Certainly, hiring Mitch McConnell's wife is not a bad idea. It works. He gets it. There's a reality to some of this.
Yeah.
And there's just one other piece that strikes me, and I'm trying, not to be biased on this one at all towards Trump, but if this were someone else, would we not be talking about how Lincoln-esque this is, this team of rivals, especially if Romney joins this team and whatnot?
And that's the one I want to ask you more about is, the appearance of Mitt Romney in coming to the table, right? I mean,
how hard for both men to have dinner just last night together.
Yeah.
For both guys, how do they do that?
Yeah.
Wow. But the other part of it, if Romney is involved here somewhere, and even if he's not, now given the 180 he's done on Donald Trump as as president-elect, There's a healing piece of that, and at the same
Yeah.
time, too, there's a message. Yeah, I didn't like him. I still probably don't like him. But gosh, golly gee whiz, he's the president. And as you said in the beginning, whether we're Democrats or liberals or conservatives or Republicans, the bottom line is, gotta hope that he does well, because it's not okay that people in Michigan are paying what they are for health care. It's not okay that people in Indiana are worried constantly about jobs leaving, whether it be John Deere or Carrier or Cummins. Holy smokes, to live in fear is a terrible thing.
Yeah.
And I think there was an aspect of the politics of fear here that Trump played. Perhaps we can all take him to task for the way that he did it, but on the flip side, it hit a common theme with a lot of folks. I am afraid, and I want something gosh, I know so many Republicans say to me, please don't make the analogy to Ronald Reagan, but look at Reagan, there's a bear in the woods. And that analogy to the bear in the woods, which was Russia, and that incredible message of his, I'll stand up to that bear. Nobody else will do it. I see it. I see what you see out there. I see what you, the average person, sees and what you're afraid of, and I'm going to go take it on.
Excellent. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, well, just reflecting on some of his cabinet appointments so far, at first the question was, is he going to go completely fringe?
Yeah.
And chief of staff was, I think, the real litmus test.
Sure.
People were seeing where
Thank you
that
for
went,
that
and then he
piece.
went
Yeah.
he went
Yeah.
establishment,
Yeah.
and he's making all his supporters happy in one way
Yeah.
or another. Not everybody's going to be happy, but by having Mitt Romney as under consideration, I think says that more interested than revenge or anger or feelings or anything. He's concerned with doing a good job, and he's saying, who do we have in this pool? First it was Giuliani. All those questions came up, and Trump had to have said, this isn't good enough for me.
Yeah.
I like him. I really
Yeah.
appreciate him. This isn't good enough for me. Who else do we got? Romney's name came up, and I know there's been that civil war in the tower over it, but I have to go with good faith and say he's interested in doing a good job and having good appointments because he demands that excellence.
Yeah.
I feel like he runs his business, is how he's going to run his cabinet, and if people aren't the right people, they're either not going to stay or they're not going to get chosen.
How many people could interview and bring back for a second time a guy who called him a fraud
Yeah.
and a con man?
Yeah.
That says a lot.
Yeah.
Oh, very much so.
Yeah.
To me, and listen, if he picks Mitt Romney, I won't be disappointed, but it wouldn't make me happy from the standpoint of
Yeah.
what Mitt did to him in the campaign. On the flip side of it, you say, wow, that's a much bigger guy than I am, because he's actually doing what you said. He's doing what's right for the country.
It's a good example.
Right, but he's doing what's right for the country,
It's
not
business,
right for him.
It's business, not personal. That just keeps going through my mind, if this is all real.
Yeah.
You're so on target with the Steve Bannon piece, too. Something that strikes me with that is if you wanted to keep this guy as an advisor, why would you not have done it quietly? All presidents have, the fund for this, the fund for that, or
course.
campaigns continue on, you keep consultants, but yet did this openly. I'd love to have been a fly on the wall on that one.
I agree.
Or read the book on that one 3 years or 5 years. Why be so open about it? Yeah. Why not just have him around quietly? Yeah.
Guys, how much time we got left? Any? Zero. All right.
We ate it all up. All right.
Guys, I want to thank you
That
for
was
coming.
great.
Folks, thanks for watching The Upside. I want to thank Tony and Rob again. Have a great day. We'll see you on the next show.